We will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years. This builds on our previously announced measures to cap international student permits and reform the temporary foreign worker program, all of which we are implementing with a single aim: stabilize our population growth to give all levels of government time to catch up, time to make the necessary investments in health care, in housing, in social services to accommodate more people in the future. Far too many corporations have chosen to abuse our temporary measures, exploiting foreign workers while refusing to hire Canadians for a fair wage. All while, under the watch of provinces, some colleges and universities are bringing in more international students than communities can accommodate, treating them as an expendable means to line their own pockets. That's unacceptable, and it needs to change.
The caps that we put in place are not measures that we took lightly, nor are the measures taken today ones that we're taking lightly without reflection. We are an open country, but not everyone can come to this country. Permanent residency is something that we hold dear. It has a value, as does Canadian citizenship. One final point that I think is really important for the number crunchers out there, and I know there are indeed a few. The temporary measures that we have taken, including the ones that Minister Boissonnault has announced, are expected to result in a reduction of Canada's temporary resident population of 445,000 in 2025, an additional 445,000 in 2026, and perhaps a modest increase of 17 in 2027. Those are the numbers that we are factoring in as we look at the impact on the need to build housing units, but also the ones we look at when we look at the overall mix and the plan to reduce the temporary resident population from 7 to 5%. One, the need to focus on people that are already here. It means that consistent with our plan, over 40% of permanent residents will come from the temporary residents that are already in Canada. These people are a young labour pool, they're skilled, they're here, they've begun their process of integration, and it doesn't place the additional demands on the housing, healthcare, and social services that we see with someone that comes directly from another country. When it comes to Canada's permanent immigration targets and aligning them to our economic needs, I'm here to announce and confirm that the current plan reduces next year's projections from 500,000 permanent residents to 395,000, a net reduction of 105,000 permanent residents immediately in 2025. After that, in 2026, a progression down to 380 to stabilize the numbers at 365 in 2027. Consistent with our plan, over 40% of permanent residents will come from the temporary residents that are already in Canada. These people are a young labour pool, they're skilled, they're here, they've begun their process of integration, and it doesn't place the additional demands on the housing, healthcare, and social services that we see with someone that comes directly from another country.
I will be sharing with you this recent update that just came in, and along the line, I will be reacting to some of the things I will be reading out. Canada to cut new immigration levels plan by nearly 100,000. Canada is set to take a significant turn in its immigration policy as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government prepares to announce a reduction in immigration levels after years of consecutive increases. With new permanent resident intake targets scaled back by 90,000 individuals in 2025, dropping to 395,000 from this year's 485,000. You can see that it is just exactly 100,000. This is exactly in line with what was predicted. Okay, this marks a sharp reversal from the government's initial projection of reaching 500,000. Because if you watched my last video when I talked about the updated policies referring to international students and the rest, from that video I talked about when the immigration minister said, 2024, it will be planning to have 405,000 immigrants, and by 2025 we will be having, say, I think 500,000. Now This is now like a sharp reversal from the government's initial projection of reaching 500,000 new immigrants annually by 2025. The revised immigration targets will gradually decrease further to 380,000 in 2026 and 365,000 in 2027, signaling a more measured and restrained immigration approach for the coming years. So, this is not all about international students now. From what I've read so far, this is talking about permanent residents. So, it's now like cutting across. So, now let's break down the new Canada Immigration Levels Plan. The new immigration levels are part of a broader economic and social recalibration by the Trudeau administration. So we have the economic class codes, we have the provincial nominee programs, we have the family reunification programs, we have the refugee and protected persons, we have the temporary resident levels. So those are the levels we are talking about. But then here is a quick reminder that while Immigration Minister Mark Miller is expected to provide a detailed breakdown of immigration programs on November 1st, you guys remember that in my previous video I talked about some things that you think you can do before November 1st. If it's within your power, do it, because from November 1st moving forward, all those policies will start, being implemented. So on November 1st, 2024, early reports from sources suggest that the federal economic class will bear the brunt of these reductions. So the first one I said was economic class cuts. The intake will drop by approximately 60%. That's a whole lot, more than half, reducing the number of accepted applicants to just over 41,000 in 2025. So the cut is also expected to maybe recover by 2026 and 2027, but will remain far below the previous targets set in earlier immigration plans. For the PNPs, that's the provincial nominee programs, the intake through PNPs will be halved to 55,000 in 2025 and maintained at that level until 2027. Then let's talk about the family reunification program. So this new plan also includes a reduction of 20,000 family reunification visas next year. So if it's possible, maybe one spouse is in Canada and the other one is in another country, and there's an intention for two of you to come together, you start making the plans now so that you'll be among the few ones that will be accepted. Then currently, family reunification is set at 118,000 with a reduction of 20,000, and it is expected to drop by to 98,000. We also have the Refugee and Protected Persons Program. So this program will also face similar reductions, though these numbers remain subject to change based on fluctuating asylum claims and refugee applications in any given year. Then the next one here is temporary resident levels. So when you talk about temporary resident levels, I think study permits will have to come in here. Visiting visa will come in here. For the first time, the government will set official targets for temporary residents with plans to reduce temporary resident applications by nearly 30,000 in 2025, bringing the total to just over 300,000. So this aligns with Immigration Minister Mark Miller's earlier comments about reducing temporary residents' share of the population from 6.5% to 5.2% over the next 3 years. So these immigration rules are just changing, not just changing, now making the rate at which immigrants should come to Canada to be reduced. So the government appears to be recalibrating its stance in response to growing public pressure. The reduction of immigration levels signals a significant shift in the Liberal government's policy, moving away from the more ambitious targets set in previous years. You may be wondering why Trudeau is doing all these things. Actually, the man is facing pressure, especially from permanent residents that feel that they went through a lot to come here, and somebody will just come in to study, and maybe in the next 1 year or 1 year plus the person is already a PR, escaping proof of fund and the rest. So the Trudeau's government is facing criticism, okay, from both opposition parties and voters. So, hence all these things that you are hearing. The reduction in immigration numbers reflects a political strategy to regain voter trust ahead of the federal election. So, I think that's all about election. But the main purpose or the main reason for this video is to let you know that the government is still planning to reduce immigrants even in the next coming years. So I wish you all the best. That is those that are planning to come to Canada or those that have their applications in process. And in case you don't know the processing times, so recently the processing times have been updated, which I showed my last video. Okay, so kindly check it out. I believe this video has been helpful. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to share. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do. And see you all in my next video. Bye.